Greetings, free thinkers. Welcome to the Hoggcast. How are you doing today? I hope you're doing fine. I certainly am. Okay, what do we have for you on today's episode? We have for you a clip to watch, and we're going to go over it, which ties in very well to the fact that Californian residents now have passed the number of signatures they needed in their recall effort against Gavin Newsom. Now, you're going to ask, or you might ask, why so many people have signed this petition and continue to sign it. It just keeps going. It hasn't stopped once they got enough signatures. It just keeps going. Well, we're going to cover that in this video today because the clip is about things that are happening in California, and it just pales in comparison, honestly, to the types of things that conservatives get accused of. But as you know, only we get held accountable for our actions, and in many cases we get held accountable for imaginary actions, or we get held accountable for the actions that they committed themselves. But I digress. Okay, so let's get into this clip. But if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video around. Retweet it, share it on social media. Only takes a few moments, and I need that now more than ever, because this entire channel has, for the moment, been demonetized entirely. I'm talking to YouTube, and we'll see how things go. But let's get into this video. Okay, so let's get into the clip.
America became a more dangerous place in 2020. Murders were up 30% across the country, led by Democrat-run cities like Chicago, New York, and Seattle. Oakland, California is currently terrorized by an outbreak of random attacks and robberies, and things have gotten so bad that people have started citizen patrols to keep their neighbors safe. But will this kind of vigilante law enforcement save lives or lead to more violence? Joining me now is radio host from Seattle, Jason Rantz. And Jason, basically there are places where you have one day of action, January the 6th, and the world is to stop while we address that, find out who did it. And then there are these other places where violence can just go on day after day, night after night, for months on end, and it's just a normal feature of life.
See, that's what I was saying earlier. Again, what happened in DC on January the 6th was terrible. We know that. We know that. Look, let's not get into deflecting. Deflecting isn't the Conservatives' game. We don't do that. There were people there who were angry, of course, but they allowed their anger to spill out in unhelpful, extremely unproductive ways in which only harmed our movement, because you know we are going to be held accountable not just for our actions, but they will use our actions against us forever. Whereas, as he says, in places like California and other such Democrat-ran coastal areas, it goes on. The same type of thing goes on day in, day out, week in, week out, even month in, even year in, year out. And not only is nothing ever done about it, but it isn't even spoke of. It's very hush-hush. You're not supposed to speak about that. When it comes to the usual suspects in Antifa and the like, when they do their things in the big urban areas, big urban cities, they not only are never held accountable, or rarely held accountable for it, it's never used against the left in the way that what happened on the 6th is used against the right. Anyway, let's continue.
Out on the West Coast particularly.
Yeah, and it's a sad reality for a lot of people who live in these cities who have to deal with it. Citizens should not have to create their own patrols, be it in Oakland or anywhere else. They should have a fully resourced police department to do the work for them. This is not safe. On the one hand, I do appreciate people going out into the community, because the more people who are visible, who show up and say they care, the better it is. But these are not...
See, I agree, because you can't really have citizen militias out and about, because when that happens, It is a sign that a city, a state, a country even, isn't functioning correctly, right? This is why in places like California, the recall effort looks like it's going to be successful. Unless the DC swamp, we know that Gavin Newsom is the son-in-law of, or he's a relation of Nancy Pelosi. So she's going to step in and I should imagine stop the people from doing what they want, which is to have a new leader. They don't want Gavin Newsom anymore. But this is what I mean. If the people are organising themselves into community patrol groups, that is a sign that the city is failing in its most basic requirement, which is to keep the people safe. That is the first requirement. Basic requirement. The second basic requirement is to keep the lights on, which is something else that is eventually going to become a problem with the advent of this really big push to move away from fossil fuels entirely and go to renewables entirely. Not only will you have to get used to sky high crime rates, you're going to have to get used to sky high energy bills and even at least semi-frequent blackouts. Let's continue.
Not folks who are trained. These are people who do not know how to de-escalate, which is exactly what the activist community has been demanding. So, unfortunately, it could end poorly for these individuals who obviously are well-intentioned. What we need to stop doing is embracing this culture that has been attacking police and policing. Because when you look specifically at what's going on in the city of Oakland, that's exactly what's happened. You've had a murder last month every other day in the city of Oakland. And what's happened at the exact same time? You've had a city that has embraced the defund police movement. What have they done? They've cut the bicycle and foot patrols. They've cut the community resource teams that patrol the neighborhoods. Kind of weird.
Yeah, it is weird. We were talking, Shannon Bream and I, a couple of minutes ago about incitement. And one of the things that's happening in these lawless cities is that some of these Antifa-type groups are now inciting the mob against you in particular.
Yes, they are. I mean, they do it to a lot of folks who actually go into the mob when they're out on the streets and they're committing their acts of vandalism and other violence. We go in because we think it's actually important to tell people what's going on. We know that...
Yeah, because the mainstream media won't do it. You can't rely on the mainstream media to accurately portray or portray at all what the radical left are doing because they're on their side. The mainstream media is essentially the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party, and the likes of Antifa and these other black bloc groups, these radical groups, are essentially the foot soldiers of the Democrat Party. The thing is, with politics, the modern politics in general, not just in the United States but across the Western Hemisphere, is that the left will dictate the narrative and the right will just accept it. The right, or the quote conservatives, will try to exist and in some cases even win the game that is being set by the left. So the left will set the rules of the game. Instead of the right opposing that and playing their own game, the right agrees to play their game with the rules the left set. And when, on a rare occasion, the right win with this, in the case of Brexit, in the case of Donald Trump winning in 2016, those two things weren't supposed to happen. The establishment weren't supposed to allow the hoi polloi to vote to leave the European Union, and they weren't supposed to vote in Donald Trump, who is a political outsider to the DC swamp. So when those two things happened, and it was two instances, very rare, of the right winning the game with the rules that were set by the left freaks out. The left gets angry because this is their game. Not only did they invent the game, but they set the rules, and only they, and they alone, have the power to waive the rules when they want to, or change the goalposts, move them away when they want to, or even just change the rules when they want to. And then when the right, in spite of all of this, very rarely wins, the left freaks out, which is exactly why you've seen the actions to oppose Donald Trump. They are currently trying to impeach him, to remove him from an office he no longer holds. If that's not changing the rules, if that's not bending the rules and moving the goalposts in the game that they play, the game that they created, I don't know what is. You notice how the right, or the Conservatives, the Republicans, they never go ahead with impeachment. They never impeach Democrats because it's not their game. The game is made by the Democrats. It's their rules. And their rules dictate that they, and only they, are allowed to do these type of things. You're not. We're not. They are. They created the game. They make the rules. They change the rules when they want to. And they are their own referee. The referee's on their side. Now, what more do you want? So when it comes to the likes of the radical left groups, they will target this man and other people, especially Andy Ngo. They've actually chased him out of Portland. Why? Because they don't want people going in, showing the world what they're really like, what they're really about, and what they really do. Because the mainstream media usually play the game by their rules, in which they cover for them, lie for them, manipulate the masses into thinking that the likes of Antifa are a benevolent group, which of course they're not, but you'll be surprised at how many people out there have no idea of their actions and what they do, and actually think they're a force for good, when you and me know they're a force for bad.
That a lot of media outlets are not going to do that. We know that there are media outlets like the competition that pretend it doesn't actually exist. They're the arm of the Democratic Party. But it does exist. It is happening. And what they end up doing is people online notice that when we're there, we take photos and videos. They end up screenshotting our faces and telling people our names and hashtagging codes to the mob on the ground saying, hey, Jason Ranz is out there. He's there taking photos of your faces. Be on the lookout. And I was there just a couple weeks ago in the city of Tacoma, Washington, as part of one of their riots. I heard my name being discussed. I thankfully was undercover in the sense that we're in the middle of a pandemic, so I can cover my face. I had a beanie on. Couldn't really tell it was me. But I mean, they do that with the intent to harass, intimidate. And yes, I've seen folks who are trying to uncover this sort of thing getting assaulted.
Yeah, do you feel it's a little bit odd when you have congressmen sobbing on the floor of the House of Representatives because they were, 3 blocks away on January the 6th, but they feel that somehow they're suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, while guys like you out on the streets of American cities...
Yeah, he's talking about AOC. I mean, she was caught blatantly in a lie. She was 3 blocks away. She tried to make out she was in the thick of it, getting attacked from all directions. Like shots were being fired, like she was in a Hollywood movie. And now she's saying she has a post-traumatic stress disorder for something that she was never a part of. If she does, it just goes to show you the testament of projection, the testament of delusion, that you can not only say a lie, but you can believe your own lie to such an extent that you end up with post-traumatic stress disorder over your own lie because you believe what you have said so much that you end up with post-traumatic stress over it. Isn't that amazing? An astounding phenomenon.
Who are actually being targeted, you're just supposed to suck it up, basically.
Yeah, the thing of here's the issue. They want to pretend that because they have felt a trauma, that nothing else is going on, that this is just about them. There is no doubt that what happened on January 6th was serious, and it is a stain on our history. However, There was also 8 months of violence that has overtaken American cities. People were murdered, businesses were destroyed, lives were ruined, and that also matters. We have to pay attention.
Exactly, because you see all these city blocks that were torched out and burnt out by Antifa and BLM. Each and every one of them, I've said this before, was a person or a family that had their own business. That business represented a dream. How many people wanted to open their own business but never could? Now you take them out of the fold, then you have those people who opened a family business and could and made their dream happen. And then COVID came along and it destroyed their cash flow, so their cash reserves were also by then at a minimum. And then you have these guys come in and they burn it all out, and then there's nothing left. Nothing at all. How many families lost their reason for existing to them? And you don't hear a peep, a murmur from the mainstream media. They never hold them accountable for their actions.
To that, and to this day, not only is that being ignored, we still have members of Congress like Cori Bush who are egging it on. That has to be seen as a potential threat.
Right, you're absolutely right.
Well, exactly. The United States and society in general, whether it's in whatever Western country, is only going to start to be healed. People will only start coming together once the rules are applied equally. If you have a society where different people are held to different standards at different times based on different things, you create a recipe for chaos. And people notice these things, okay? Things like national anthems and flags are the very basic thing that people of different cultural backgrounds or ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, within a society or within a country, a nation, can unify with. You can say, right, even though we're different religions, we can both say that we love the national anthem, we love the flag. So they are things that bind us together, right? Then you have the Democrats the other day saying that not only is it not necessary to say the Pledge of Allegiance in the House of Representatives, something that was meant to bind Republicans and Democrats together, but then we have in the sports, woke sports, we have the manager of, I think it was an NFL team. It was one of these major teams in one of the really big sports in America, who said that they wouldn't be singing the national anthem because it's offensive. It's offensive to who? If you cannot come together and unite over a flag, over a nation's national anthem, then what chance does society really have? Really? What chance? Tell me, because I want to know. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. Let me know what you think of all this in the comment section below. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell and share this around. Share it to social media and the like. I'll be very grateful if you could spend just a couple of moments to do that. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.